So let's kick off by introducing yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
So hello everyone, I'm Mark Patton. I'm the Assistant Director for Education and Skills with Newcastle City Council here in this wonderful city of ours. Why do I do what I do? That's a really deep question for a Friday morning. I guess the basic reason I do what I do is we all want to make a difference, don't we? We're put on this good earth to make things better for those people who are here and for people who are to come after us. So that sounds like a very deep philosophical thing.
Well, I think it's a great answer.
It certainly is. Are you still there? Can we still see you?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful, great, yeah. Just my probably my show this and then show hide that. And then let's try a bit of this. Anyway, Mark, it is a deep question, but it's important because you've always had an interest. Apologies, there's a motorbike in the background for our listeners wondering what that other sound effect was. You've always had an interest in education, though, haven't you?
Yes, I had a pretty standard schooling. I come from a standard background. Things were tough for me and my family, but my schooling was excellent. My primary schooling, my secondary schooling was very, very good. I had the real honour to have what I consider to be the best teacher I've ever come across teach me English for 5 years. And that led to my love of language and literature, and his general knowledge about the world and about history and all sorts of things really sparked my interest in and being what we would now call a polymath, someone who knows a little bit about a lot of things. Yeah. And that stood me in good stead as a teacher. And my best and favorite primary school teacher was the person who inspired me to actually think about teaching as a career. So yes, I've always had a background in education, in trying to help people to understand things and to try and make things better for, as I said earlier, for themselves, to learn new skills, to learn new knowledge, and to encourage and inspire others to do the same.
Which is exactly what you do.
I hope so. I think over the last 30 odd years in education, I've supported hundreds, if not thousands, of children and young people on their educational journey. You would always like to think that you make a difference. That there will be times when things maybe haven't gone as well as I would have wanted them to go, or other people would have wanted them to go. But that's life, isn't it? And we learn from those experiences. We try to make sure we don't make the same mistakes twice if there are mistakes to be made, and that makes us who we are.
It does. It certainly does. And you are making. You're gonna have to get a little bit cozy for the Zoom thing. But I've been fortunate, Mark, and sorry because I'm rubbish at this multitasking thing, and I just sort of like to get settled and get talking is what I really enjoy doing. So I apologize for that, and I'll give you and indeed our listeners and viewers our full attention. But I've been quite fortunate enough to have the pleasure and the joy of sort of being involved somewhat in your endeavours through the Progression Forum.
Indeed, it's the Progression Forum is a really important part of what we do in this city to try and help our young people who are in the process of leaving compulsory education, or have left compulsory education and are thinking about their next steps. You will know, because you've been working alongside the rest of the members of the forum, about a very big event that's coming up in a little over a week's time, which I was going to plug this morning. So thank you
wonderful.
for that nice.
Let's get plugging
that
please.
Nice segue in. So we've got for the first time in a very, very long time in Newcastle, a huge event aimed at young people from about the age of 14 all the way up to 18 or 19 or maybe a little bit older, for those people who've got special educational needs and or disabilities, to really come to a big venue. So we're hosting an event at St James's Park on the 15th of February, where a whole range of businesses and trainers and educators are coming to occupy, I think it's 3 floors of the venue.
Gosh.
And young people and their parents and carers can come along, can talk to the businesses and the providers, talk to them about what they're looking for in their employees of the future, what kinds of skills they're looking for, what kinds of qualifications they're looking for. And the other thing I want those young people and their families who come along to that event on the 15th of February at St James's Park is to get a real sense of how much opportunity there is, not only in Newcastle, but also in our neighbouring local authorities and in our region for employment and training. I think times have been tough in the last 2 years for businesses as well as for us as residents and citizens, and we are coming out of that, and businesses are starting to grow and to flourish again, and are looking for opportunities to take on new members of staff, to take on trainees. And this event on the 15th is a really good opportunity to share all of that and to celebrate the opportunities that are out there, the employment opportunities for young people and their families. So if you get an opportunity, come along during the normal school day, so between 9 and about 3:30, 4 o'clock, it's restricted to school age young people, so it's not open to the general public. But from about 6 o'clock until relatively late in the evening, there's an opportunity for older young people and parents to come along and to engage with the stallholders who will be there.
Well, and the importance of that type of event can't be understated or overstated, can it?
No, I don't think so, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier for young people. But I think for businesses, it's also a really good opportunity to come to a central place and to engage with what will be the workforce of tomorrow. The people who are in this city now will be the employees of the future, and employers and trainers really want an opportunity to engage with them and to talk to them about what they're looking for. I think it's a win-win. I genuinely feel that the event will be a win-win for everybody.
And it's amazing how much effort and energy and enthusiasm's gone into that, Mark, to make it happen, because it was simply an idea, this time last year or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden it's turned into a several thousand attendee event at St James's Park, with a vast number of, I was just looking at the various organizations that are represented, and public, private, education, professional services, construction, pretty much every major sector is represented. I mean, Jaff, just very briefly, your biggest challenge in your business is what?
I mean, currently there seems to be a number of people giving them their CVs, but when you look into that, you'll find it's a lot of students, a lot of people that are not from Newcastle. So we would like, for sure, more locals to kind of approach us, bring in their CVs, and once they get through that stage, I think critically, we appreciate if they're young that they're not going to be the finished article at all, and it's our responsibility to take them on that journey and put them on a type of program that's going to aid their development. But they must come with some basics. And I guess the basics that we demand, sadly, they've become a bit lower than what they used to be. because we used to hope for more, but seeing kind of the condition of a lot of individuals or young kids that were coming in, and we had to in many ways start again, in terms of the importance of punctuality, the importance of discipline, importance of a positive attitude, try to motivate them as a constant, but we did find that those basics were lacking. So we kind of, these days we look for any individuals who have the right attitude, and are prepared to learn and develop and stay with us for a certain period of time where we can work with them. If they come and work 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we just really can't do anything with them. So there's a number of elements there, but primarily I think it's the attitude that we look for.
And I think that's a really important message, for any young people who are listening live or listening back to the show, and anybody who comes along on the 15th of February at St James's Park, to hear directly from employers that yes, those basic qualifications are sometimes very, very important, but actually there are often in some opportunities things which are maybe a little bit more important, and attitude and approach and a willingness to learn, and an ability to stick with it. I think that's a really, really important point, because the learning journey is, we all know, sitting in this room, we're all, very experienced professional people who've been through the ups and downs of professional learning. It's a measure of oneself that you pick yourself up and you get on with it when things maybe haven't gone the way you wanted them to go. And I think that's sometimes it's a very hard lesson for young people to learn, because by definition they're young and they haven't experienced some of those very, very lows that up until that point, and they just need to be understanding that resilience is a really, really important part of life, not just professional life and working life.
And to that point there about resilience, I think it's such a critical factor, and anybody who doesn't have resilience, unfortunately, I think they can only be half as successful as what they could be if they did have resilience. But the resilience question, I personally feel there's not much resilience within the young. And I think the concentration levels sometimes, I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, but would it be right to say if you had the ability to concentrate, that strengthens your ability to be resilient? Because if I give you an example, I'm really, really focused, I'm concentrating, and I'm determined, that adds to your qualities of being resilient. But I don't find that. We find that everyone wants to check their social media within breaks, or even on the phones, and whilst they're working, and that's a culture that we're kind of battling against.
Yeah, but I think it's a great point, and just to cover two things, Jeff. I think that individuals, young people, it's a different generation, so we need to acknowledge that. I think the other thing is there probably isn't the same level of exposure to employers that may have been around when we were young people, and I'm not just talking about sort of employers you didn't know, family, that sort of, I mean, I remember starting work when I was 10, right? As in, and gosh, I don't know if that was legal or not. Anyway, it was. I still went to school, obviously, but yeah, I started working when I was 10. So by the time I was 16, 17, I got the importance of all of those softer skills. And sadly, a lot of our young people are in a bubble, and they don't have necessarily the same level of influences or experiences. Gosh, you'd have to walk to the top of the West Road to make a phone call. It's like, who does that? As in, you'd have to deal with challenges, navigation, orienteering. I mean, I was doing an innovation talk a few weeks back, and it's crazy that there was A to Z maps. Everyone had an A to Z map. And now it's like somewhere, that it doesn't even feature in anybody's head. And if I said to a young person, A to Z map, grid reference, they'd go, as in, and I understand that. So there is this over reliance, and understandably this cultural shift towards digital transformation. And I think your focus point is a very well made one as well, because it's not just young people though, right? Young people are influenced by their influences. And what I mean by that isn't just like online or, gosh, here's such and such and here's whatever. It's their parents, their carers. What's the first and last thing you pick up, going to bed, getting up? It's your phone. We no longer stand in a queue and have a conversation. Everyone's like doing that, as in just staring intently at a screen because we feel a bit uncomfortable unless we're connected digitally to whatever it is or looking at whatever. I mean, I pull myself away regularly from thinking I'm going down another rabbit hole because someone sent me something. I then look at it and then something else pops up. And then before I know it, it's like, oh my gosh. And, it's that squirrel analogy. And finally on that point is that focus. I had 7 competing deadlines in the last 7 days. So I've done a bit on Friday, done a bit on Saturday, done a bit on Sunday. And that focus ensured, I was talking, I have my weekly team calls with my financial director and legal director, and I was saying to my FD, this week has been incredibly productive. It's been a shorter week because I've had to deal with strikes and looking after kids and things like that. But because of that focus, I felt as if I just got stuff done and I focused intently and inherently. But lots of people just don't know how to do that. And so young people in particular, they've never had to do it other than these alien environments where they might be doing an exam. Because you don't do exams anywhere outside of education, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you both make really good points, and Jeff, I think that the focus ones is a really interesting one. And, I think Ammar's right. I think we are in a different place now as a society than we were, and we all recognise that. However, we all make choices, and then as has been well rehearsed in literature and all sorts of other places, the choices that we make determine the kind of people that we are, and the kind of opportunities that lie before us. And it's your choice whether you pick up the phone. It's your choice whether you pick up the tablet or on the computer. First point. Second point, Ammar, you're absolutely right. That word influencer is really important. And I think parents, carers, extended family are so important in modeling for our children as they develop and grow in terms of good habits and giving them experiences as far as they are able to and where they can, but also in modeling good behaviors. And if children repeatedly see those around them picking up devices and using them rather than looking them in the eye and having a conversation or reading a book or talking to them about what's going on around them when they're outside walking about or whatever, then they will do that. That's how the human brain works. Developmentally, it works by taking information in from outside, making sense of it, and then building that into neural pathways in the brain, and that determines our behaviors and how we think about things. And children go through that at a rapid rate of development. I think on previous shows I've talked here about the importance of the first 1001 days in a young person's life. Those first 3 years are so important. And I think often those influences around children forget that just because a child, for example, isn't speaking until the age of 1.5 or 2, that nothing is happening inside their head. There couldn't be anything further from the truth. Further from the truth. They see, they listen, they feel, and yes, they might not be able to talk about those things, but they are learning and they are developing their behaviors. And so it's a really precious time as children are growing up, to show them and to model the kinds of things that are going to help them to make those good choices in the future.
Really, really important to reinforce that and highlight that. I suppose there's one thing having a conversation about it, right? There's another around how do you change those type of habits, especially when I'll put my hand up and say, like this week, I was juggling work and I was juggling that, and am I making an excuse? Possibly, but there was certainly an element of digital devices are so easy on there, as in it's a case of when you've got young children, it's quite easy to keep them entertained. However, the impact of that is immense, because I see the change in behavior when they're sat watching YouTube videos or anything, of that type of ilk. Even the cartoons these days, I mean, gosh, cartoon, as in, I appreciate we're going down a slightly different avenue, but everything on television seems to be aggressive, at one end or one extreme or the other. The cartoons are like what I describe as silly rather than funny. You're seeing a lot more silliness and behavioral sort of dramatization to sort of bring people in. I mean, my cat and mouse would never sort of chase each other around in the house, and sort of do whatever, the cat and the dog and the mouse, but I used to love it, and that was like sort of fictitious, but actually a lot of the programs now, they verge on using sort of factual, real life character type stories to dramatize them and then engage young people.
I think on that point, Amar, I think I have mentioned a lot within our kind of management team that there seems to be a lot of there is a lot of drama that you feel is out there within the workforce as well. My point is, I think it all goes back to my original point about concept. I think they are bit more trigger happy, as in the highs, the small things they feel very, very high, and the small lows they feel like so depressed about.
Yeah.
So we say to them, look, don't be too happy when something's really, really exciting, and don't get too depressed when something is really bad, because you need to deal with both things equally, and you need to keep yourself kind of on that level playing field as a constant. But unfortunately, the younger kids that we see, they are kind of very up and down. The personality is like up and down, fluctuates a lot, and it's triggered very easily and very quickly. So it's like that resilience. If you were more resilient, you wouldn't be that way.
And I was just going to make that point. Resilience is about how you learn as a person. We know as adults how you learn as a person to deal with the extremities of life, and the things that get thrown at us. And yes, there is absolutely nothing wrong in sharing the joy and the happiness when things go really, really well, and you want to celebrate that. And there's also nothing wrong with being a bit sad and a bit down and perhaps a little bit depressed when things aren't going the way that you want them to. But the key is about recognizing all of those things in yourself, and that you are behaving in a slightly different way to the way you would know, whatever normal means, the way that you would usually, perhaps a better word, the way that you would usually behave. Recognize that and understand that that's why you're behaving in that way, and then develop the strategies for getting yourself kind of back on track, or back to that usual way of being, Mark or Amar or Jalf. And I think young people, I think you're right, get very scared sometimes when things, not at the highs, but the lows, I think, do really scare them. Because I think modern society, 20th and 21st century children, possibly for all the best reasons, haven't really experienced the lows as much. I think they're very well protected. We try as a society to protect them from horrible things. As parents and carers and extended family, we try and protect our children. Sometimes maybe we protect them a bit too much, and there's nothing wrong with them being exposed to, in a safe and comfortable environment, the things that can go wrong, because that's the way we teach them, and this is how we deal with it.
Yeah.
And this is how you build resilience in those youngsters.
Well, I think all of these things are critical. I suppose the other challenge for young people is, us old fogies having different views, right? I mean, gosh, I remember my mum and late father, telling me, do this, don't do that, and whatever else, and you go, what do they know? And then you become them, and you go, oh, I'm gonna try that. I'd love to work out how might we, and certainly we're not going to do that in 3 minutes, how might we change that cycle, that circle of it almost being too late before people realize how important the advice they're getting from the people that really care and love them.
And ultimately, it's probably the right advice for them at that moment, but they just can't see it.
Well, that's the point, right? And it's a case of, well, you don't know what you don't know. It's very much so.
And imagine, Marcus, there's that tale, isn't it? If I knew everything I knew and I could go back 20 years, imagine.
Well, there's would you rather, there's a game that we play heads up and played various games on use our devices if we're in sort of restaurants and places like that where we don't want them sat there like that. We don't want to sit there, because that's what happens, right? If your child sat there and you're sat with them looking at something, you'll naturally start doing that yourself. And it's like, oh, well, they're influencing me, I'm influencing them. Anyway, there's a would you rather game, and it was really interesting because one of the ones that came up, and I noticed this going down a rabbit hole on Facebook, would you rather have $10 million because it was an American thing, or would you rather know everything you know and be 6-year-old? Obviously I'd go for the latter, right? That's it. There's the thing. It's incredible. But anyway, Mark, conscious we've got 1 minute left. What's happening?
15th of February.
Yeah.
So this is my 4th plug now in the
Great.
space of 25
Well,
minutes.
yeah.
I think I'm doing really well.
You are.
So 15th of February, a real big opportunity at St. James's Park, central venue, right in the middle of the city. If you are a school-aged young person between 14 and 16 or 18, speak to your school about coming along during the school day. We've got buses and all sorts of things going on to make sure people can come along. If you can't do that during the school day, and many children can't because they've got other things to be doing during the day on the 15th, then there is a session at the end of the day from, I think it's about 6 o'clock at St. James's. Exactly the same businesses and traders will be there, and people can come along and talk to those who've got opportunity.
Great.
Excellent.
Really exciting. I think it's fantastic opportunities. Get out your comfort zone, get along, meet some employers, understand your options, look at the variety of things. You don't necessarily have to go to university. There's variety of equal opportunities, and maybe that's not best for you. Or equally, if you haven't thought about university, there'll be some universities there as well. I think it's a great job. I personally thank you, Mark, for your endeavour, your passion and positivity to help facilitate making this happen and enabling it, and all of the team involved, your team involved, for making the magic happen as well. So thank you and congratulations.
All with a smile on your face, Mark, as well. And it makes such a big difference.
I love Mark, as in, in every sense. I think he's a great guy, and I think he's wonderful for the city, and what you do for education and our young people, is transparent and translates into impact. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you on behalf of the teams in the city and the schools and all the staff who work in there as well. We all want the best.
We do.
Excellent.
You'll be listening to Omar and Jaff. We'll be back next week, back on Zoom.
Grant Shapps has urged energy companies to suspend the outrageous practice of forcibly installing prepayment meters following reports that British Gas has been sending debt collectors to break into customers' homes.